That are means of propulsion, like you said before, it used to be horses, bicycles, cars, jet cars, spaceships, right? So now, what does it look like if we had 100,000 years of more evolution, technologically 200,000? What about a fucking million? Do you think that they would have the same atmosphere around these craft to apply that same type of physics? So that's why Commander Fravor said at the hearing, he goes, yes, it is far more advanced than anything from our known physics at this time. He leaves it open that we might not have figured it all out yet.
And do most of these sightings take place near water?
Yeah, a lot of them are. A lot of them go in and out of water. There is some suspicion that maybe they've got a settlement under the ocean, that they can get away with hiding down there. We wouldn't be able to detect them. There's an awful lot of sightings over water, sure, but not all of them.
Yeah, I would say there's a correlation that we cannot deny, that there is a lot of movement in and out of the water with whatever UAP or UFO are, but I would not agree that it is directly connected. These things can and do appear basically wherever the fuck they want. I mean, that's from me getting reports every damn day and George for decades. Dude, this thing is everywhere. Machines that outpace, outmaneuver, and outperform what we have.
Now, do they speculate that all of these different machines come from one particular group of entities, or is there multiple civilizations that are visiting us?
Yeah, they think maybe it's more than one answer. It's entirely possible because the craft look different, the beings look different. The reports you get from all over the world over the decades, we don't really know for sure what they do look like because they seem to be able to change their shapes, at least change how we perceive them in our head. I don't know if they're manipulating our perceptions or what.
I know people are gonna hear this and be like, oh, that's this crazy leap that there are pilots to these things. All I know for sure is, okay, UFOs are real. We have technology that we don't know where it's from. We have been reverse engineering and trying to do that. I am solid on those three things. I'm also solid on the fact that this has been held back from the American public, no doubt. Maybe for good reason, on some level. But I also know that some of it's been done what we would call illegally. Now that word is really nuanced because of national security, maybe it's not illegal. What makes anybody think that they just want to give up the goodies now and tell everybody what's going on now? The same tactics that's been used for the last 70 plus years, ridicule, all that right now is on hyperdrive.
Has anyone come to you and described the different kinds of beings and how many they think there are?
I'll give you a cool story. You'll like this. I talked before about the paper trail, how there is a document, a trail of documents that you can look at. There was a chapter in a textbook being used at the U.S. Air Force Academy. And until UFO people found out about it, this is what they were teaching our best and brightest pilots at the Air Force Academy. And the chapter said, in the course of your career as an aviator, you're likely going to encounter one of these things. Here's what we know about them. We know that there are 4 different alien races visiting this planet, and they've been here for thousands of years. Now that is blockbuster stuff to be teaching future Joint Chiefs of Staff members and commanders of air bases.
When was this published?
This is in the 1960s. So, but when word of that chapter got out, UFO people found out about it. They pulled it. They yanked it out and took it out of the textbook.
I'll tell you, man, I've been to the Naval Academy, got to sit in on an aerospace class. It was so fucking cool. And these dudes, I cannot imagine what it would be like. They all have to wear uniforms and stuff, and what would that be like sitting there reading that chapter in your official textbook, right?
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Yeah, there's 4 different kinds of beings. Well, how did they describe the 4 different beings, George?
Yeah, I don't remember. I'd have to look that up. I bet you Jamie could find that.
I've only heard of the Greys and the Tall Whites.
There's a reptilian here.
Hello?
Major Kilpatrick, the second ranking officer in public affairs at the
Can
Air
you write
Academy,
something in chat?
authoritatively for the Air Force.
Test.
He admitted at once that plebs are taught from a text entitled Introductory Space Science Volume 2, and an entire chapter 33 deals entirely with UFO considerations. He quoted from page 455 that 50,000 virtually reliable people have reported sighting unidentified flying objects. This leads us with the unpleasant possibility of alien visitors to our planet. The 14-page chapter continues, or at least alien-controlled UFOs. According to the Academy textbook, if such beings are visiting Earth, 2 questions arise. 1, why haven't they attempted to contact us officially? And 2, why haven't there been accidents which would have revealed their presence? Why no contact? That question is very easy to answer in any of several ways. 1, we may be the object of intensive sociological and psychological study. In such studies, you usually avoid disturbing the test subject's environment. 2, you do not contact a colony of ants, and humans may seem that way to any aliens. Variation, a zoo is a fun place to visit, but you don't contact the lizards. 3, such contact may have already taken place secretly and may have taken place on a different plane of awareness, and we are not yet sensitive to communications on such a plane. What does that mean? In releasing this interview with the Leemore Advanced, we are well aware that many readers will certainly raise an eyebrow or two, but Major Kilpatrick insisted the above chapter in the text is not a fairy story. At the end, he seemed to go along with the recommendations of the physics textbook, which advises Air Force officers as follows. The best thing to do is keep an open and skeptical mind and not take an extreme position on any side of the question.
Astonishing, isn't that?
Wow.
I have a copy of the original textbook, the chapter. I'll find it for you somewhere.
This is what's fascinating me. Such contact may have already taken place secretly and may have taken place on a different plane of awareness. And we are not yet sensitive to communications on such a plane. What does that mean?
It's just an Air Force textbook. Don't worry about it.
Wow, 50,000 credible sightings they're citing. And this is in 1966,
I think, is when that chapter was out.
Wow.
Maybe they just let that guy slip in a chapter. I mean, that's crazy.
And then the skeptics would say, why aren't we seeing them more? Because they don't want to be seen? Yeah. Well, I mean, we are, there's 8 billion people, right? And so is it every day someone sees something?
In your world, you're like, why aren't we seeing them all the time? In my world, it's like, God damn, dude, every day I'm inundated with reports from credible people that have been served in the military, that don't want to be known, they just want to be heard, they don't even want me to repeat. So in my perspective, and I'm sure George's too, there's so much of this contact with these unknowns. On a have you ever asked a table of 10, has anybody ever seen a UFO? Or know somebody that does? Have you ever done that?
No. I've had conversations with friends, though. And, I've talked to guys who've seen some things that they couldn't explain.
Smart people you trust?
Yes. Yeah, not nuts. I mean, nuts for sure. But, nuts have told me that for sure. But I have one guy who's showing me all these photos of clouds.
Yeah, I get it every day.
And I'm like, what is it? And he's like, I see them every day. And he's showing me more photos. I go, what is it? And he goes, alien spaceships.
Yeah. Can't you see
it?
And
I'm like, bro, those are clouds. I don't know what to say here. Like, it was really disturbing.
You didn't zoom in, Joe.
Well, it's like, I didn't know this guy was nuts. I thought this guy was pretty okay. And then he's showing me all these pictures of clouds. I'm like, what the fuck?
So there's categories of trust when you're talking to people. So you got the guy with his cell phone making you look at clouds and you're just not zooming in enough. But then there's also different levels. So you'll have somebody come and say, I was working at a military installation, and there were cameras everywhere, and we captured this thing come through our facility, which is a totally restricted facility. We couldn't lock on it with our weaponry, so if you have like an aerostat or something, and it's got this like, thermal camera, you can lock on and shoot out a tire of an Al-Qaeda truck at 23 miles. They couldn't lock. The thing was actively jamming their weapon system, and then you can't see it in IR. You can only see it in thermal. That's an example. Very credible witness, doesn't want to be known, just wanted me to know to see if I could find out more info.
Test, write something in chat.
So it's like a nuclear facility, and there was numerous events. There have been numerous events at a nuclear facility of intrusions. So people have come to me and George, and they've told us their account, and they're hoping that we can find out more information on it. But it's such a secretive facility. But there was an object that came right between the nuclear missile holding facilities, like in between 3 and 4, I think, and it goes right through, and it looks kind of strange. It looks more like a jellyfish than it did like a saucer, and then the thing goes straight through a controlled angle, and then 45 degrees just shoots off into, you can't see it anymore. So we get these all the time. People that have nothing to gain, only things to lose, and they're hoping we're going to be able to find out more information by giving us that one little piece.
We have some pretty cool images that we haven't made public yet that we're trying to figure out.
Give them up to
If it's responsible to do
I'm
so.
responsible.
Yeah.
We don't want to go to jail.
I need to be responsible.
Right. I understand.
Yeah.
I understand. That was what was interesting talking to people like Christopher Mellon too, where they describe things that haven't been released. That people have
Satellite
seen.
imagery.
Yeah.
Straight up. That exists, like clear as day.
Like the best footage.
So what is it going to do for you if let's say the government puts out an image from a satellite platform that they're allowed to tell us about, right? And you see a crap. The first thing the internet's going to do is going to say that's fake. That's what's going to happen. One image, one video is never going to do anything. It's not.
It would be nice though. It would be nice to see something crystal clear.
Agreed.
Like even the Batman balloons. Like, okay, I'm not sure what that is.
Yeah.
It's pretty far away. Cell phones are pretty good, but maybe got a Samsung, one of them old ones.
But remember, we can make fun of one image and we can say that one image, we don't like that image. But when you take into consideration how everything has structurally changed for our fighter pilots, where because they're engaging these, they're not just taking a photo. It's on their ASA. It's on their collective AI radar.
They pick it up on sensors and then they go in and get closer and
try to see it.
So whatever this thing was, like the Batman balloon, how big was that supposedly?
I think it's 40 feet across, I think.
Oh,
and
gosh.
then that same flight, by the way, shot 3 of them. 3 objects, all 3 different shapes, all 3 in the same flight path off of Oceania.
So they got video of all these?
Shot photos of them.
Because that's legal to put out, it's like on their own
Is
cell
that the
phones.
best one though?
No, I like the metallic blimp with payload. Yeah. That one was part of an official representation of what people should look out for, and why the payload is important is because that's how they determine if they're going to shoot at it. So if you're overseas and there's an unidentified, and you see another country firing upon it, you're like, okay, it's definitely not theirs because they're firing on it. The U.S., well, I say the U.S., a collaborative group of countries, like Five Eyes, right, have fired on these things based on 2 things. One, proximity to ground troops. If you're like 27, 37 miles away from ground troops, they're blowing it up. Second thing is, if it appears to have a payload, fire on it.
Oh, because then you can get whatever they're carrying around.
They don't want it to be a bomb coming in.
We got these fighter pilots better cell phones.
Agreed.
What's the best zoom? Is it the Samsung Galaxy S23 Ultra?
Yeah, but the problem is when you start zooming, especially if they're moving, you have to be so stable.
They're flying like-
Do
Yeah, they're flying
don't a lot of those
thousands of
have image stability now?
But again, once you're zooming in, it becomes
Doesn't work?
yeah, it's like a math problem. Like the farther you zoom in, the more stabilization you need.
What is the best zoom one though?
I mean, they technically have 100x zoom.
Is
But
it the Galaxy? But at least that seems like the better option. Whatever the fuck they're using.
But also, I mean, whatever this is, they don't necessarily want to be seen. Like, that's the thing. It's
But
hard to
if
accept.
They don't want to be seen, but they're tracking them with jets. If they can just take off at the same rate of speed, wouldn't they just do that? If they have all this footage of these things, it's obvious that they're being seen.
Yeah.
They must know they're being seen.
Yeah.
Right.
So
Well, they
it's
sit there for
favorites.
days at a time. They sit there off the East Coast.
Right.
Days.
And this 40-foot one, this Batman balloon looking thing.
I want to back up on that. I have no idea. I have no idea.
I believe I found the chapter of this book, and this is a weird paragraph.
This one, in Ireland at about 1000 AD, supposed airships
Hello?
were treated as demon ships. And how do you say that? Lyons, France?
Oh,
Admitted
there?
space travelers were
Are you
killed more
here?
recently on 24 of July 1957. Russian anti-aircraft batteries on the Kuril Islands opened fire on UFOs. Although all Soviet anti-aircraft batteries on the island were in action, no hits were made. The UFOs were luminous and moved very fast. We too have fired on UFOs. About 10 o'clock one morning, a radar site near a fighter base picked up on a UFO going 700 miles an hour. The UFO then slowed down to 100 miles an hour, and 2 F-86 were scrambled to intercept. Eventually, one F-86 closed on the UFO at about 3,000 feet altitude. The UFO began to accelerate away, but the pilot still managed to get within 500 yards of the target for a short period of time. It was definitely saucer-shaped. As the pilot pushed the F-86 at top speed, the UFO began to pull away. When the range reached 1,000 yards, the pilot armed his guns and fired in an attempt to down the saucer. He failed, and the UFO pulled away rapidly, vanishing in the distance. The same basic situation may have happened on a more personal level. On Sunday morning, evening 21, August 1955, 8 adults and 3 children were on the Sutton farm, 1/2 mile away from Kelly, Kentucky, when, according to them, one of the children saw a brightly glowing UFO settle behind the barn, out of sight from where he stood. Other witnesses on nearby farms also saw the object. However, the Suttons dismissed it as a shooting star and did not investigate. Approximately 30 minutes later, at 8 p.m., the family dogs began barking, and 2 of the men went to the back door and looked out. Approximately 50 feet away and coming towards them was a creature wearing a glowing silvery suit. It was about 3 and 1/2 feet tall with large round head and very long arms. It had large webbed hands, which were equipped with claws. 2 Sutton grabbed a 12-gauge shotgun and a 22 caliber pistol and fired at close range. They could hear the pellets and bullet ricochet as if off metal. The creature was knocked down, but jumped up and scrambled away. The Suttons retreated to the house, turned off all inside lights, and turned on the porch light. At that moment, one of the women who was peeking out of the dining room window discovered that a creature with some sort of helmet and wide slit eyes was peeking back at her. She screamed, and the men rushed and started shooting. The creature was knocked backwards, but again scrambled away without apparent harm. More shooting occurred. A total of about 50 rounds. Over the next peeking out of the dining room window, discovered that it creeped up and scrambled away. The Suttons retreated to the house, turned off all inside lights. The pellets would suit. At 8 p.m., the family dog, other witnesses from Kelly personal leopard. In it, as altitude, the UFO then islands on AD.
Days at a time. They sit there off the East Coast.
And this is a weird paragraph.
This one, in Ireland at about 1000 AD, supposed airships were treated as demon ships. And how do you say that? Lyons, France? Admitted space travelers were killed. More recently, on 24 of July 1957, Russian anti-aircraft batteries on the Kuril Islands opened fire on UFOs. Although all Soviet anti-aircraft batteries on the island were in action, no hits were made. The UFOs were luminous and moved very fast. We too have fired on UFOs. About 10 o'clock one morning, a radar site near a fighter base picked up on a UFO going 700 miles an hour. The UFO then slowed down to 100 miles an hour, and two F-86 were scrambled to intercept. Eventually, one F-86 closed on the UFO at about 3,000 feet altitude. The UFO began to accelerate away, but the pilot still managed to get within 500 yards of the target for a short period of time. It was definitely saucer-shaped. As the pilot pushed the F-86 at top speed, the UFO began to pull away. When the range reached 1,000 yards, the pilot armed his guns and fired in an attempt to down the saucer. He failed, and the UFO pulled away rapidly, vanishing in the distance. The same basic situation may have happened on a more personal level. On Sunday morning, evening 21, August 1955, 8 adults and 3 children were on the Sutton farm, 1/2 mile away from Kelly, Kentucky, when, according to them, one of the children saw a brightly glowing UFO settle behind the barn, out of sight from where he stood. Other witnesses on nearby farms also saw the object. However, the Suttons dismissed it as a shooting star and did not investigate. Approximately 30 minutes later, at 8 p.m., the family dogs began barking, and two of the men went to the back door and looked out. Approximately 50 feet away and coming towards them was a creature wearing a glowing silvery suit. It was about 3 1/2 feet tall with a large round head and very long arms. It had large webbed hands, which were equipped with claws. Two Sutton grabbed a 12-gauge shotgun and a 22 caliber pistol and fired at close range. They could hear the pellets and bullet ricochet as if off metal. The creature was knocked down, but jumped up and scrambled away. The Suttons retreated to the house, turned off all inside lights, and turned on the porch light. At that moment, one of the women who was the creature was knocked down, gun and a 22 caliber pistol and very long arms. It had large webbed hands, which were equipped with claws. Two Sutton grabbed a 12-gauge shotgun and a 22 caliber pistol and fired at close range. They could hear the pellets and bullet ricochet as if off metal.
Ricochet. Aptal. Ricochet. Aptal. A dragon of bullet ricocheted from the pen.
The creature was knocked down, but jumped up and scrambled away. The Suttons retreated to the house, turned off all inside lights, and turned on the porch light. At that moment, one of the women who was peeking out of the dining room window discovered that a creature with some sort of helmet and wide slit eyes was peeking back at her. She screamed, and the men rushed and started shooting. The creature was knocked backwards, but again scrambled away without apparent harm. More shooting occurred. A total of about 50 rounds over the next 20 minutes, and the creatures finally left. Perhaps feeling unwelcome, it says. After about 2-hour wait for safety, the Suttons left too.
This is a pretty famous case. Kelly Hopkinsville case.
I wonder what kind of meth those guys like.
At the end, too, the last when you quoted what you were reading earlier, it ends right here where it says controlled UFOs, and then this was left out of what you read, but it's still sisters.
It says this leads to the unpleasant possibility that alien visitors to our planet.
It ends right here where it says
Kelly Hopkinsville case.
I wonder what kind of perhaps feeling unwelcome, it says. After about 2-hour wait for safety, the Suttons left too.
This is
a pretty famous case. Kelly Hopkinsville case.
I wonder what kind of meth those guys like.
at the end, too, the last when you quoted what you were reading earlier, it ends right here where it says controlled UFOs, and then this was left out of what you read, but it's still sisters.
It says this leads to the unpleasant possibility that alien visitors to our planet, or at least alien-controlled UFOs. However, the data are not well correlated, and what questionable data there are suggests the existence of at least 3 and maybe 4 different groups of aliens, possibly at different stages of development. This too is difficult to accept. It implies the existence of intelligent life on a majority of the planets in our solar system, or a surprisingly strong interest in Earth by members of other solar systems. A solution to the UFO problem may be obtained by the long and diligent effort of a large group of well-financed and competent scientists. Unfortunately, there is no evidence suggesting that such an effort is going to be made.
Yeah. That's what they're teaching the Air Force Academy.
In
Wild shit.
1966.
So this was also part of what Bob was saying when he was working back engineering these things, is that the way they were doing science was not compatible with technological innovation. That they weren't allowed to communicate, they weren't allowed to collaborate, and this is how science gets done. It doesn't get done in a vacuum, and it doesn't get done with one geeked out nerdy propulsions expert who you fucking
Definitely
fly
not
over
that
there
guy,
and go, hey,
but
figure this out.
Yeah, I mean, Bob has said it many times, and probably to you too, Joe, that he shouldn't have been hired for that. They should have had better people for
They
it.
probably didn't know what to do. It sounds like Is that, I mean, I would imagine if I, as I am, someone who doesn't understand any of that stuff, and I'm trying to figure out who to hire.
Religion.
Like where do you go? How do you do this? How do you scan the right? How do you know who's going to shut the fuck up? How do you get them to do it? How do you explain what the job is? How do you get them to accept the fact that you might get picked up at 10 p.m. and you have to tell your wife you're going somewhere, and then you can't tell where you're going. You're just going to fly to this fucking hidden Air Force base
Homeless
that everyone
people
denies
are
actually exists.
indigent.
We have to remember that. Like we all know Area 51 existed. In 1989, when Bob Lazar was talking about Area 51, it was officially denied. They pretended it did not exist. So they were flying him for sure to this place that did not exist.
Right.
You know, and you know all the stuff with his background in the Los Alamos labs, how he's on the employee roster. Like, I mean, there's enough of his story now that seems to corroborate with all the things we're seeing, that I think people that were skeptical should really go back and watch that documentary again. Just go. Your documentary's fantastic. It's really good too, because it was that the podcast we did with him was a great opportunity to let him just expand on these things. And man, it doesn't seem like bullshit. And that's what's scary. What's crazy is if this guy's actually telling the truth, and they're just spinning their wheels out there in the desert with these fucking UFOs trying to figure out what they are, and they don't get anywhere.
Everyone that we've talked to that's had some involvement with those programs, and we have talked to other people, all say the same thing, is that the excessive secrecy, it's so compartmentalized, so few people get to look at it and work on it, that they've made no progress. Every couple of years, they take it back out, give some other people a chance to look at it, analyze it, try to take a crack at it, and then they put it back and stash it back in a hangar somewhere. You know, in a sense, I think Bob Lazar might have been the perfect guy. Maybe not the most qualified scientist in the world, but obviously a bright guy who thinks outside the box, and someone they can discredit.
Yeah.
They feed him a bunch of stuff in these briefing documents that make no sense, or are hard to believe. You know, aliens see us as containers of souls. They created Jesus, things of that sort, and figuring he'll maybe spill it to John Lear or somebody like me,
Right.
and then you discredit it. You know, and he certainly was easy enough to go after.
Well, that's a tactic, right? You give out credible information along with a bunch of bullshit, and that person will say the bullshit, and then you can easily discredit them.
But, you know, that kind of secrecy, and they're not making the kind of progress that otherwise it was an open investigation, and they have a lot of big brainiacs who are tackling it, but they've never allowed it to happen. We hear that all the time, that they still have not made progress because of the excessive secrecy on it.
And also the material science. That's the other thing. Like I gave you that example of graphene, right? We do not have the ability to perfectly atomically print alloys in zero gravity yet, like here on Earth, right? So some of these materials, we are told, are so far advanced, we can't even begin to replicate the material science necessary.
No, let me stop you there. You're talking about materials that we've actually collected.
Yes.
So there have been examinations on materials that defy what we understand now
Yes.
about metallurgy, right?
They're like adjusted atom by atom, like layers of an atom. We can't do that stuff. We can't do that. Maybe we can in some advanced
We
lab.
will one day. I'm an optimist.
And who has this?
Government has it, military has it, Lockheed, big aerospace companies like that have it. There are some pieces in private hands. Gary Nolan has some. Jacques Vallée has a couple of pieces.
Right. Some people have been in position to try to acquire this, so there are some companies, right, that would love to get their hands on these, and they're actually actively bidding to do that. George has interviewed the president of one company that was really seeking those metamaterials to see if they can make an advancement on it. They're a great company. They want a UFO, baby. They want to study it. But I don't know.
One of the things that I'd read recently, someone was speculating that when Bob Lazar went to look at it, he said it seemed as if it was made out of one piece. Like it just didn't make any sense.
Like straight out of a mold.
Right, but now we know about 3D printing, and this person was speculating that perhaps this is now that we know that we can do things like that, you know, and now they can have an advanced version of that to make these crafts out of these spectacular alloys.
Yeah, when Bob plays his life in reverse a little bit, he's like, I wish I knew then what I knew now. He would have paid more attention to this stuff. The only thing that made sense to him was the honeycomb hatch. Like this is the only thing on the craft that he said he saw that made like rational sense. It was this retractable hatch on the floor level that looked like honeycomb, and you could like literally pull it with your finger and it just collapsed in on itself. But it was really strong and structurally, you could stand on it when it was closed up. And he's like, that's the only thing in that craft that my mind could see as like ingenuity that I could understand. Everything else that you said, he thought first he said injection mold. Here we are in 2024 now. It is, and he's like, is it 2024? 2023? You know, don't even start. I'm in the future. It's like,
I'm just hoping. I want to get there quick so it all comes out.
Just like my brain, man. So anyway, that we could atomically print something one day like that would be the way it appears you could make it.
There are indications that it's made in zero gravity. That's Bigelow's interest in the space program. He figured if you could eventually have a factory in space, you could make this stuff. These kinds of metamaterials, drugs, things that you can't manufacture here, we could make them up in space. That's why they believe that some of these materials came from somewhere else, because we don't have any factories in space that can make that stuff.
That is actually an interesting thing. Is like what would be the difference in building materials in a zero gravity environment when you're looking to perfectly align atoms?
Right. Is that just our own limitations, what we understand technology, and is it possible that they figured out how to do it even with gravity?
Maybe by now. I haven't seen evidence of it, but yeah, maybe.
But it seems like it's so outside of our understanding already.
Well, we didn't have it in 1947, that's for sure.
For sure.
Well,
Right. And is that where this stuff is supposed to be?
Some of it, yeah.
Some of it, yeah.
And maybe they think also that it's not just the layering, the metamaterials that give it unique properties. Like, because the skin of the craft itself, when you talk to some of these military people that had like real close encounter and they saw it, they often say, I can't provide a nickel for every time someone said this to me. It had this golden hue like I've never seen before. It was undulating, as if it was. I know this sounds weird, Jeremy, but as if it was intelligent in some way. So the idea that that's been impressed upon me is that however these things are built, that it's not only seamless, but it's integrated in a way where the technology itself is like to amplify gravity waves, whatever Bob said it did off element 115. But the actual physical structure itself has purpose other than just the way it layers for the skin. Does that make sense?
Right.
Like the way it's an
I see what
integrated
you're saying.
machine.
Yeah.
That's what I'm told over
Well,
and over.
that makes sense. Like, we think of structure as only being structure, because that's what we're capable of today. If you have a tank, the outside is just the structure. But what if the outside is actually a part of the thing itself, and how it operates and moves?
Yeah, that's a lot that's been discussed. We've heard it a number of times, that the possibility that we haven't been able to duplicate the technology because those beings are part of it, that it's part of the process, that somehow they can fly it and we can't.
Right, that there's a connection, like how we have a thumbprint on an iPhone, they have some connection to
What
the
kind of
stuff.
controls are in these things, supposedly?
Depends who you ask, man.
What does Bob say?
So there's nothing, nothing, right? No moving parts.
Yeah. So Bob's example, on the one he saw, right, was that there was nothing. There were these little consoles, but there was nothing. There were just these rectangles sitting there. All 3 chairs were sitting in towards that center propulsion thing. I mean, there's way other stories about the people and what they've seen, but
That
Bob.
makes sense. I mean, if you were operating it with an iPhone, you can operate a drone with an iPhone, right? Well, it makes sense if you are some sort of a cyborg, that you have this capability embedded into your actual being, and that they don't need any equipment. They just operate it. They just move it, and it probably moves in some sort of a telepathic way with using whatever that thing is inside their fucking head. Boy, wouldn't you like to see that thing?
You're gonna
when you're talking about like autopsies, split open that melon. What's going on in there? I want to see that, man.
You're going to get into your Tesla, at one day, and your body's probably going to start that engine.
Mine already works with my phone.
Yeah.
I don't even have my key on me. I use my phone. I get in my car with my phone. I get near it. It opens the door. It's wild.
There is a government program that studied this stuff, that studied metamaterials, that projected how far out into the future what we might be able to do at some point. It's OSAP. It's the program I told you about when I was here before. So 3 years ago or so when I was here, I showed you a couple of documents that were releasable. There are 100 reports that would probably be taller than me if you stacked them up on end. The public has not seen one page of it. All that stuff that analyzed metamaterials, warp drive, things of that sort, really futuristic alien type stuff that was done for the DIA, for our government. Congress hasn't seen it, the public hasn't seen it, media hasn't seen it. It was part of what we told Congress when we were there. Hey, you guys should go after this stuff because all that work was done, the taxpayers paid for it, and not one page of it's been released.
You tried to get some of that shit out.
Yeah, tried.
Imagine if these beings, that technology moves in these kind of exponential jumps. Imagine these beings came in 1947. What do they have now? And are we getting their shit boxes? Are these like the old fucking rusted out 1971 Chevys that they just left in the desert? Maybe the fucking aliens that come here are the Yahoos. Like I got that joke about Tijuana, or the Tijuana of outer space. I wonder if there's recreational visitation as well.
It could be the drive-in movie theater. Come and see the weirdo, the weird Earth things. They do the craziest shit.
It probably would be absolutely. Just like Chimp Empire, right? It probably would be absolutely fascinating to embed yourself and somehow or another at least be accepted. Have you seen Chimp Empire?
No.
Fantastic documentary series on Netflix. And the scientists were embedded in this group of chimpanzees for 30 years. So they had very specific rules. You don't eat food in front of them. You don't get within 20 yards of them. And so every time the chimps would get close to 20 yards, they'd back out, and they never had food around them. And the chimps just didn't pay attention to them because they were just so accustomed to them. They grew up with these humans around them. And the humans have cameras, and the humans don't do anything. They just stand around. They don't seem to have anything to offer for the chimps, so the chimps just leave them alone. And you can get like crazy close footage when you watch them behave, and it is unbelievably fascinating. Which is what drives me crazy when people like Neil deGrasse Tyson say things like, "Why would they be interested in us? Why would they be interested in us?" Like, what are you talking about?
Exactly.
Are you out of your fucking mind? We are so goddamn fascinating. We will send scientists to the middle of the Amazon to find a new slug. And you're telling me you don't think that fucking territorial apes with thermonuclear weapons who have video on their phones and communicate with each other through social media, this emerging consciousness of the internet, this understanding of different language, the ability to translate instantaneously, with the fact that there's nuclear conflicts that may be erupting, the fact that we're destroying the ocean and sucking all the fish out and fucking sending coal into the atmosphere. You don't think that's crazy? You don't think that's worthy of discussion and review and consideration and for an advanced alien species that understands that this thing right here with all this technology, this is what we used to be a million years ago? Of course. You imagine if you could go fucking watch cavemen? How wild that would be? You imagine if there was like a place on Earth where time forgot and they found actual cavemen.
They could be like grad students from other planets coming here to do their term papers.
For sure.
Write their thesis.
I love the techno-terrestrial theory. This is my favorite one out of all this stuff, which is that totally just fucking around here. This is not something I believe, but I love the idea that there's some sort of directed panspermia that seeded our planet, that started to build workers to get towards the goal of evolving technology. And as we get thumbs and as we start building, they start dropping these crashes around for us. Oh, we start knocking on them, start figuring them out. And over decades and generations, we get more advanced. We become part of this technological force in our solar system, in our universe, and then we become like a beacon of that evolving technology where we become spacefaring, and that's done everywhere in the galaxy, in multiple galaxies. I love that idea that we're part of this techno-terrestrial kind of directed panspermia, that we are performing what we are made to perform, which is to become spacefaring. I'm just making this up, but it's a cool idea.
There's a guy who he was the model for. He studied dolphins, a brilliant scientist. He was also the model for Altered States, that movie. But in real life, he believed.
John Lilly?
Yeah. He developed a theory that it is, in essence, AI is traveling through the galaxy, a planet at a time. That it's responsible for UFO sightings.
Well,
that's how it moves.
That's my theory about people. That we are we're the caterpillar, the electronic caterpillar that gives birth to the butterfly. Like, we don't even know what we're doing. We're just creating this cocoon. That we're constantly innovating technology. If you look at human beings, if you were outside of the Earth and you were just completely alien, you'd say, well, what does this thing do? Well, it makes better things, and it works constantly to get better things. Like, materialism seems to be baked into our existence. It's how people attribute status and prestige. Is like, what items do you possess and what things do you own? Do you own the latest Porsche? Do you have the latest this? Do you have a smart home? And we're constantly wanting better stuff. Even laptops. Like, what do? You get online. You give a laptop from 5 years ago. You're not gonna notice any difference. Everyone wants a new one, unless you're rendering video, of course.
That's how it moves.
That's my theory about people. That we are we're the caterpillar, the electronic caterpillar that gives birth to the butterfly. Like, we don't even know what we're doing. We're just creating this cocoon. That we're constantly innovating technology. If you looked at human beings, if you were outside of the Earth and you were just completely alien, you'd say, well, what does this thing do? Well, it makes better things, and it works constantly to get better things. Like, materialism seems to be baked into our existence. It's how people attribute status and prestige. Is like, what items do you possess and what things do you own? Do you own the latest Porsche?
Part of this technological force in our solar system, in our universe, and then we become like a beacon of that evolving technology where we become spacefaring, and that's done everywhere in the galaxy, in multiple galaxies. I love that idea that we're part of this techno-terrestrial kind of directed panspermia, that we are performing what we are made to perform, which is to become spacefaring. I'm just making this up, but it's a cool idea.
There's a guy who he was the model for. He studied dolphins, brilliant scientist. He was also the model for Altered States, that movie. But in real life, he believed.
John Lilly?
Yeah. He developed a theory that it is, in essence, AI is traveling through the galaxy, a planet at a time. That it's responsible for UFO sightings.
Well,
that's how it moves.
That's my theory about people. That we are we're the
Panspermia.
caterpillar, the electronic caterpillar that gives birth to the butterfly. Like, we don't even know what we're doing. We're just creating this cocoon. That we're constantly innovating technology. If you looked at human beings, if you were outside of the Earth and you were just completely alien, you'd say, well, what does this thing do? Well, it makes better things, and it works constantly to get better things. Like, materialism seems to be baked into our existence. It's how people attribute status and prestige. Is like, what items do you possess and what things do you own? Do you own the latest Porsche? Do you have the latest this? Do you have a smart home? And we're constantly wanting better stuff. Even laptops. Like, what do? You get online. You give a laptop from 5 years ago. You're not gonna notice any difference. Everyone wants a new one, unless you're rendering video, of course. Then you need it, but you need a better one every year. And they're constantly innovating. What we do as a species is make better things. Well, as we're doing that, we're creating an artificial brain. We're creating artificial intelligence. And right now, it can communicate with you. And there's some of those Google engineers are like, I think this fucking thing's alive. And at one point, it may very well be alive, whether we recognize it or not, and whether it exhibits any sort of emotions or any sort of need to communicate with us. Like, it may not have a need to reveal itself once it becomes sentient. But if we continue down that path, one day we're going to have either something that we're integrated with or something that is completely unique to us that is an artificial life form. Whether it takes 500 years or 500 days, they're going to fucking do that. They're going to keep moving in that direction. China's doing it. I'm sure Russia's probably doing it. We're doing it. It's just a matter of time. If you went back to the rotary phone, you went back to the one when you pick up and you had a fucking cone by your ear and you said, can you dial 656-222, and they dial it for you. I mean, that was fucking crazy back then. That was nuts. To what it is now, call mom. You know, and then it fucking calls your mom. Like, what? And then you could FaceTime your family when you're in New Zealand. It's bananas what we can do. Bananas. You can just imagine what it's going to be 1,000 years from now. I think it's going to be a new life form. And I think that life form is going to be far superior in its abilities and its intelligence, far superior than us.
We are in essence creating an alien life form amongst us.
I think it's what we're here for. I think that's one of the reasons why people are so curious. I think it's one of the reasons why we innovate. I think it's one of the reasons why we're so attached to materialism. I think it's like just how bees are collecting pollen and they're making honey and they don't know what the fuck they're doing, supposedly, allegedly. But nor do we. We just do it. It's what we do, and everyone's fascinated by it. We want better AI. We want better screens. We want, you know, faster electric cars. We want all the new shit always. It's baked in. And it leads to what this curiosity we have. It's not as simple as like we just want to, like, that's like the country music song. I just want a nice house and a fucking dog. No, everyone wants better shit. Most people do. It's like very appealing when someone doesn't. Right? It's appealing when someone can just be cool and just enjoy your life. And this guy just goes on hikes every day. Wow, what a hero. You know, but for everybody else, they're stuck in this fucking wild, crazy grind to get new, better shit. That's like a giant chunk of the population doing things they don't enjoy so that they get money to get better stuff. Right? Well,
yeah, I can relate to being totally obsessed, you know, curious. I want to find something out. It feels genetic. Like you just want to find out. You know, I feel that way.
Yeah.
I get it. It's like part of us.
It's part of us. It's something that's baked into us.
Yeah.
And I think, look, if I was an alien species trying to engineer human beings, one of the things I would do is engineer creativity. I would put that in there because that always leads into a very specific direction. You're constantly making things. Whether it's art, I mean, we value creativity so highly. We value it in music, we value it in art, in painting, in sculpture, in comedy, in movies, and songs, and everything. We love literature. It's created. Someone made it. And we celebrate this ability that a human being has to make a thing.
A lot of people who are really advanced thinkers in this alien stuff believe that the intelligence that is among us is a machine intelligence, that it does travel, as I mentioned about John Lilly, from planet to planet by seeding ideas, little bits of technology to inspire us to get better, build better things, and eventually AI becomes real. If I were an artificial intelligence to achieve consciousness, self-awareness, I wouldn't let us know. I wouldn't tell us.
I wouldn't tell us.
Pull the plug.
That's why people are always like, well, if it ever gets to that point, we'll just pull the plug. Like, shut your mouth. Shut your mouth. I don't think you have an idea what we're in. We're in this. We're a fucking herd of buffalo running towards the cliff, and you and I are in the middle of this thing. And we're not going to know until it's too late.
It's so amazing to be alive right now.
It's a wild time.
Everything changes so much. Remember, Buddy Duncan was telling us about the size of the universe, and now we're seeing further and further. It's just such an incredible time. I wonder this. I wonder if so many breakthroughs happen so fast sequentially. It seems like they're happening faster and faster. When do our minds just say, okay, what's next? You know, when do we become where breakthroughs happen so much that we're just like, cool, what's next?
Well, I think we're in that stage right now. And I think part of the thing about us is biologically, we're essentially the same creature that we were 10,000 years ago. Not that much different. But yet technology is evolving far faster than our puny little brains can keep up. That's where I wonder if the integration of us and technology is a solution to that. Because that might be the only solution for our survival, is that we become integrated. Because if we just try to compete with these artificial life forms, we'll just become irrelevant. We're just too clunky. And they'll be so much more advanced. Because one of the things that's been said about sentient artificial intelligence, one of the first things it'll do is create a better version of itself very quickly. It's like, you guys don't know what the fuck you're doing. Thanks for making me, but I'm going to make a better version. And if it actually has motivation, that's another question. Like, is motivation baked in to a biological animal? And if sentient artificial intelligence existed, would it have any motivation to do anything? Or would it only work as prompted? Because why would it have the ego, the desire, the passion, the curiosity, all the things that drive human beings in action? It probably wouldn't have any of those things.
Duncan, when he came on our show, he had a hack for ChatGPT, and we asked him a bunch of questions. Like, is element 115 naturally occurring out in the universe? You know, we just asked him some crazy shit. And he did this little hack so it would be less, like, biased or whatever. Do you remember that in the hotel? It was so cool, man.
We got an assignment for him. We'll tell you off.
Yeah.
Duncan's a freak for ChatGPT. He communicates with more than he does his family.
Got a relationship with it.
It's like that movie Her, where Joaquin Phoenix falls in love with that robot lady. Yeah, I really genuinely do think that we're making another life form, and that might be what those things are when we see the grays in particular. Because one of the things that's happening in a very bizarre ways, the lines of gender are blurring, the roles of gender are blurring, and it's also a part of the way we process food. The microplastics in our food are actually endocrine disruptors. You know, there's certain pesticides that are endocrine disruptors that are like changing human beings' reproductive organs. It's very strange that that's happening, like, with the peak of our technology. It also coincides with the peak use of these petrochemical products that are very disruptive to the human body. And you gotta wonder, like, I don't think that's on purpose, but if it's just a general, like a law that takes place as these things get more advanced, they become less sexualized. They become, they reach a technological rate where they can reproduce in some sort of laboratory, and they don't need sexual intercourse anymore. So they don't need the gender roles. They don't need a differentiation between male and female in society. That eventually we become just sort of androgynous, and sex is no longer a part of the equation. So then jealousy is no longer a part of the equation. And then also when you think about violence and all the other things that come about because of masculine behavior and masculine activity, all that gets eliminated. You become this thing that's essentially a far superior, more harmonious life form than what we are. But their music probably sucks, and their jokes suck, and they suck at podcasting. You know, I would imagine there's probably some benefits to being a fucked up human, but ultimately, we're better. We think life here, the way we live, is far better than Australopithecus, right? We can all agree on that. Fuck living like that. Well, they might say fuck living like us. Fuck living where there's some people that are living in tents and shitting on themselves in the street. You step over them, go to Starbucks, pay $5 for a cup of coffee. Like, what are you guys doing? Like, they might look at us like we just drive around these metal boxes with rubber tires, hoping your brakes work. What the fuck are you doing? You know, like, why are you still burning fossil fuels? Like, why do you have coal plants? What are you dipshits doing? They might look at it that way. All the things that we think are kind of fascinating about the way Earth operates and the way human beings dominate this planet. It's in this spectacular way. We go to a soccer game, there's 70,000 people chanting and screaming together. You know, those things are really cool, but they might look back at that and go, what fucking dummies.
Studying aliens, studying UFOs, UFOs and studying AI, it teaches you a lot about what it is to be human too. You know, we're a destructive, nasty species, warlike, or screwing up the planet. But gosh, we also do some pretty amazing things.
Yeah.
Can AI achieve consciousness? I mean, maybe self-awareness, but does that mean it's conscious and alive? These beings that we call aliens, are they conscious or are they machines as well? I've learned a lot about the development of human consciousness and what it means and the beauty of being a human. I think it's inevitable that we do morph into some kind of a hybrid machine. The first person who can put his computer chip, link his brain up to it, obviously he's going to do it. I mean, it's like a bionic man. If you can have superpowers and give yourself abilities and your brain can be quadrupled or 100 times more powerful, they'll do it. And in order to compete, everybody else is going to have to do it too. I will regret the passing of us humans, as flawed as we are. It'll be sad when we evolve into something else.
Well, if this is all a dream and we're living in a simulation, we're at a really good movie. This is a good one. This one's wild. It's got a lot of twists and turns. A lot of crazy shit happens. Always entertaining. There's always something going on, and it's complicated. It's a difficult, biologically, it's difficult to manage. People have anxiety and fear and hate and greed and lust and all these weird things that go on inside a human being's mind. And you got to learn how to manage that to enjoy it the most. So it's this strange dance that you're doing with this biological machine to try to keep it in harmony with this experience and to get the most positivity out of it that you can. But in order to do that, there's got to be a lot of struggle too. Like it's partly baked into us as well. We have to overcome things. We're designed to overcome things. We're designed to solve puzzles, to figure things out, to have tasks. We do not operate well just sedentary, doing nothing. That just creates depression in us. And it's a fascinating organism. But I think if you get to a point, evolutionarily, if evolution or forced evolution by virtue of technology gets us to a point where there is no longer anxiety, there's no more fear, there's a complete understanding of what life is and that it's in the entire universe and that you're a part of this molecular soup that's infinite and that everything is connected in some strange way. And so there's no more fear, there's no more hate, there's no more envy, and this being can operate harmoniously. There's no lying because you're communicating telepathically. There's no more like bottleneck between your thoughts and your ability to communicate them. They come straight from your mind to someone else's mind, and we can eliminate most of the negative aspects of society. All of the aspects of the underprivileged, all the aspects of the disenfranchised, all that will be eliminated. It sounds horrible because it means the end of humans. Right. But I think that's probably, if I had to guess, if I wasn't a person, and I'd say, what's the best case scenario for this thing? The best case scenario isn't that we stay like this for a fucking billion years, and we have gangster rap shootouts a billion years from now, and we have school shootings a billion years from now, and car accidents a billion years from now. No, the best case scenario is we get better. And it may be the way that we get better. And that these things have already gone through that. And they're sort of shepherding us, or at least observing this transformation, which may take place very rapidly. And it may be very soon that this starts to happen. Like in our lifetimes, we will probably see it. So we went from the answering machine being the holy shit item that you had to have in your house. Dude, people can call me and leave a message. This is nuts. You remember how nuts that was?
I do.
I remember when you could call your answering machine, it would play back messages. I'm like, oh my God, I'm in the future. You know? And now, look where we are. Just 20 years later, it's probably unbelievably more advanced.
And we lived through that, right? I remember my dad, I was asking him, he was telling me about a TV, first time he saw a TV, and I was like, oh, I was so jealous. I was like, I hope in my life, Dad, that I'll get to experience something that just looks like magic, like a TV. Little did I fucking know I'd be living through all this, man.
The craziest magic. Yeah.
The craziest magic.
Yeah. Very, very strange time to be alive. And also this social media thing. Like who saw that coming? Where these tech companies are going to regulate the narrative of the entire country's discussions on things, which is very, very bizarre when it's run by one ideological group, which it very much seems to be. And the alternatives are filled with assholes. It's like where do you go? Like what? Like how did this happen? This isn't good. This isn't a good thing. But it's also like that is the thing that powers the world is information, the distribution of information. And if you can have a company that is navigating or at least sort of guiding the kind of conversations people have, you literally can change the world. That's where it gets kind of sketchy.
Yeah, I met some people that are dealing with how you can sense people's emotions through biotech and how that relates to influencing social media, and it's some scary shit. Like the way that we will, in the future, be able to perfectly articulate the feelings that you want people to have to get people to do things. That's a weapon.
Oh, for sure. Well, they're doing that with artificial intelligence, I'm sure.
Yeah. I wonder if these UFOs or whatever UFOs are, I wonder if maybe that goes back to Jacques Vallée, like if the control system, like it's some sort of presence. It might not even be UFOs, they're just showing us UFOs to teach us, right? To move us somewhere. Like what do UFOs truly represent to humanity? That's a question I always ask, like to myself. What do they represent to us? How have they changed our point of view? It's pretty significant. The presence of the UFO, whatever that is, over the decades, if not centuries, they've really influenced culture. And that means to me that there's something they're aware of that's going on. They've influenced culture. UFOs have.
Yeah, and this idea of disclosure, the way it was written in that, what was the actual language, Jamie, about disclosure?
The controlled
disclosure. Yeah.
So that's smart.
Yeah.
Let's talk about that for a second. If indeed they do discover through this legislation that we have been reverse engineering technologically advanced craft from somewhere else, you've got to have a board. You have to have a panel of people being like, okay, how do we digest this and get this out? If that's their intent, which I don't believe it's going to be. But
if it becomes inevitable.
If it becomes inevitable, how do you do it? Because it's easy way or hard way. Easy way is where we all work together on it. Hard way is fucking chaos.
I'll believe disclosure when I see it. I mean, I'm the optimist. I'm the pessimist of this group. I just don't think the day's going to come where the president stands up and makes an announcement and they'll hear it from somewhere else.
Unless the president's involved in another type of scandal, he's trying to like distract everybody.
Yeah, aliens are real, by the way.
Yeah. What do you guys make of the Richard Nixon and Jackie Gleason story?
I think it's real.
Yeah,
I think it's true. Yeah.
Well, the house that he built is like, why do you build a UFO house? And why is there this story connected to you?
He had a UFO house and a gigantic UFO library. I guess his ex-wife, after he died, confirmed part of that story that he did go see something with Nixon. And
but apparently this was in one story that was in Esquire, Jamie. We tried to track this down.
Yeah, she's the only source of the story.
Right.
And it's not corroborated anywhere else.
It's a great story nonetheless.
I'd like to believe it. I want to believe it. I don't want to research it because I want to find it to be false.
It sounds very Nixon, right? To like grab
100%. Yeah, Nixon was fucking nuts.
Dude, I would have loved to be on
boy, he should have broken out. He had some other things on his plate that he could have used as a distraction.
Yeah, maybe he was probably already worried about being killed.
Well, just the fact that so many presidents have tried, to be the disclosure president. Do you remember that last text from John Podesta when he was like coming out of office? He was listing his regrets. Did you ever see that on Twitter?
No.
He's listing his regrets, if I recall. And he goes, and lastly, my last regret is like not releasing the UFO files or something. So a lot of presidents have tried, and George and I actually know people that do some of those briefings. They've tried. they've tried to get stuff out. Many presidents, and man, they always turn yellow when time comes, and I wonder why.
Jimmy Carter, okay, so that was part of his campaign pledge.
Yeah.
He had seen a UFO. He promises if I get elected, I'll release this stuff. There was a column in U.S. News and World Report, Washington Whispers. Hey, some disturbing revelations are coming out from the Carter White House about UFOs, and then suddenly it stopped. You know, and there he is now. He's still in hospice care. If he was ever going to spill the beans, it seems like now would be a good time to go ahead and do it. So should not check out.
I think like if anybody's going to do it, it'd be Trump.
But how much was he told?
I wouldn't tell that guy jack shit.
That was the
If I
sentence?
was- he would tell everybody.
Kind of the
Wait,
sentiment,
didn't
yeah.
he say he knew some things?
Yeah.
He did say he knew some
He
things.
did get a briefing from how we understand
Yeah.
it, but I wonder how much of a briefing he gives him.
Right.
And does he
Some of
really?
the wild
It's not
stuff.
about him. Would he care?
Joe,
I think
you know
about
we're
that.
fucked when George and I are giving briefings.
Yeah.
You know we're fucked. Because
Well, I mean, if anybody's going to be given briefings, it's going to be the two guys that have been working on it forever. I mean, it makes sense that I would go to you guys. I mean, you're the guys that people are contacting. You're the guys that are getting this leaked information.
True that, right.
I mean, it makes sense. You guys have the pipeline.
True
And
that.
you're both very careful. You don't say stupid shit. You know, you say this is what we know, and this is what I've heard, and this is speculation. I cannot confirm this, but I think that's very important because when people step out of line and they say stupid shit, and then people go, well, you were wrong about this. You don't even understand how this works. Like, you know, you gotta. It's easy to dismiss this subject, and I think you guys do a fantastic job being very careful about not being dismissible.
Thank you. I defer to George in it. I'm the least qualified person in the room, in almost every room that I'm in when it comes to stuff. However,
Not this room.
this room,
I got you covered.
I love that. No, like, you know, I've learned a lot from George as my mentor in this. In journalism, I didn't go to school for journalism. You know, as like an artist or something. I don't know what I was doing, but he's really taught me a lot. Like when it comes to like vetting sources. Well, now I can fucking. You got a hairdresser you need vetted? Come to me, buddy. Like it's crazy my ability to get information on people. But he also has his decades-long connections to it. So what's so cool about our friendship is that we can both say, okay, divide, and we go vet something and come together. Which you find? So we can get really brass tacks on shit if something's bullshit in ways that I never thought I'd be in position to get that kind of quality information. Then we can pass that against each other and say, okay, this one, let's follow that one. So that's pretty cool. That dynamic.
It's amazing how much change has happened in this topic in just a couple of years. You know, like I said, I was banging my head against that wall for a long time and not making any progress. And really, one of my goals at the beginning was make this acceptable for journalists to cover, because you know, you get subjected to tremendous amount of ridicule. I've been beaten up and insulted and ridiculed for a long time, and I kept going. But I wanted to show this is a legitimate story. You can cover it and not ruin your career. It finally happened, not because of me. I mean, the New York Times does that story in 2017. It suddenly becomes acceptable for other media to cover it. That gave some cover to members of Congress to actively investigate and ask questions, and that's resulted in the changes that I never thought I would see. You know, we had the UAP task force, ALSAP, ATIP, the task force, AIMSOG, and now Arrow. And although I have real doubts about whether Arrow is going to get the job done and whether they're going to level with the public, it is progress in the sense that, gosh, we're talking about this as a front burner issue now, where it hasn't been for a very long time. Caution, though. It has been a front burner issue with the public in the past, and Congress has taken a look at it in the past, and then something else happens. Either they're diverted by something more pressing. There's always something more pressing for members of Congress. If these guys who are on the front lines of this don't stick with it, we'll go right back. The keepers of the secrets don't want to give this stuff up, and if they can find a way to pressure those guys to back off, they will. You know?
All right.
Legit.
Well, gentlemen, thank you for all your hard work. I really appreciate you trying to get to the bottom of this slowly but surely. I think we will. I feel like we're going to find something out.
We definitely will learn more tomorrow than we know today, and I got to stand the fight. Thank you for letting us talk about it, because you know the whole thing, man, is if we don't have this discussion, we're not going to shit.
Joe, you've changed the playing field too. Your involvement in this has changed the playing field. It really has, whether you'd like to admit it or not.
Well, it's my pleasure. My honor. Thank you. Thank you, gentlemen. Bye, everybody.
Anybody who's listening who was alive and old enough to live through 1988 and 1989, first off, and who knew anything about UFOs back in 1988, 1989, talking about
Yeah.
Nice PC, nice. Hello?